President Trump threatening to seal the southern border after talks to reopen the government stall. We're also learning that President Trump is skipping his annual New Year's Eve party in Mar-a-Lago due to the shutdown. Fox News confirming now that Nancy Pelosi, soon to become Speaker of the House, is not in D.C. She's on vacation. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders going after the Democratic leader earlier.
Right now, what we've seen from her is that she's unwilling to actually do anything until she gets her speakership. She's more willing to protect that than she is to protect our borders and protect American lives, and we hope that we'll see that change over the next couple of days.
And Republicans calling Senator Chuck Schumer a hypocrite for comments he made about border security in 2009.
Illegal immigration is wrong, plain and simple. Until the American people are convinced that we will stop future flows of illegal immigration, we will make no progress on dealing with the millions of illegal immigrants who are here now and on rationalizing our system of legal immigration. We must do as much as we can to gain control of our borders as soon as possible.
So, Lawrence, I've been thinking for a couple days, we actually talked about this a little bit yesterday, is there a possible deal to be made here? That the president gets, let's say, $2 million for the wall.
$2 million?
Or $2 billion, I'm sorry. Oopsie. Okay, that wasn't a great deal. $2 billion. It's Friday, guys. $2 billion in exchange for something like DACA. Right, because it's clear that once the Democrats take over on January 3rd, they can pass a clean funding bill with no money for the wall, which possibly could pass the Senate. Is that a deal that could possibly work, do you think?
No, I don't think a deal is possible because they don't agree with the symbolic measure. Right? They don't believe that the whole theory of the wall, the campaign trail, him going down the escalators, all of that image to their voters, they just can't vote for anything like that. And so they will never give him the wall because of the symbolic measure. But I think this highlights something. Looking at Chuck Schumer, what changed with him? What changed with Barack Obama? Yeah, right. Something had to change. And that's why I started the last segment by saying I feel like the entire debate is disingenuous because they know. And I know they know because they said it in the past. You just cannot have an open border.
Right. Kennedy?
It's interesting because I like that Chuck Schumer is being confronted with his own words here. And, you know, as we make resolutions for the coming year, you have to look back on the resolutions you made last year. And did you fail yourself? You know, go back and look at last year's list and the year before. And I think that's what some Democrats have to do because they talk a big game, but for a lot of their voters, this is a NIMBY issue. Not in my backyard. And they want to see something done on immigration. And, you know, he acts so high and mighty now and so self-righteous, and he thinks he's so much better than the president in terms of how he argues about immigration. And I may actually agree with Chuck Schumer on certain points, but when he said just a few years ago, people who went to the United States without our permission are illegal aliens, and illegal aliens should not be treated the same as people who entered the United States legally. That is in diametric opposition to statements that he makes.
He probably still believes a version of that. And Jedediah, one thing I think Democrats push back on, I know you think it's just the symbolism of the wall, but to a lot of Democrats, we feel like the president is just saying the wall will fix it. It's the wall, end all be all. By the way, Mexico is going to pay for it. Now taxpayers have to. It doesn't seem like the president's talking about a comprehensive fix.
Like
He's just focusing on, exactly.
Yeah, like a broader plan. But I think that's true. That's a fair point. I think it would do him justice to actually broaden out from the wall and talk about the other issues as well. But you talked about, you know, what changed. One of the things that changed was Trump. Trump made this issue a prominent issue. Republicans oftentimes don't put this as the lead issue. This was a guy who was out on the campaign trail talking about immigration first, talking about this wall, talking about how Mexico was going to pay for it, which I thought was a mistake at the time because I didn't see that happening. But he put it front and center, and by virtue of him doing that, everybody that loathed him now had to hate that policy. I mean, Chuck Schumer sounds like Donald Trump in that clip that we heard. He's echoing the very same talking points. But now, because this is Trump's issue and because the wall has become a priority for Trump, when they oppose Trump, they have to oppose that measure, even if it's counterintuitive to what they've been saying for a very long time. So I wonder how much of this is opposition to Trump or opposition to the actual policy. Because I think a lot of it is about Trump.
And it's interesting because the president has talked about immigration in terms of filling some of the labor shortages here. And he's talked about needing workers. And, you know, you're never going to hear most of the press talk about or cover the kind statements that he's made, which, you know, also can seem hypocritical. But the president also talks about the wall as though it's a force field.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily a force field. And it's not going to stop every type of illegal immigration. And it's not going to stop drugs from coming in, because drugs come in through San Ysidro, through the main ports of entry.
That's fair.
And there is that is actually not the best way to combat the drug problem in this country. There are some other ways that are libertarian and a little unsavory. Family audience.
This is why the argument doesn't go anywhere, because there's this weird fallacy that if somebody says, well, the wall won't prevent X, that negates the premise of the wall. Actually, yeah, the wall won't prevent overstayed visas, but a fence won't prevent a falling rock. But conflating the two, you actually negate the benefits of either, right? So you can actually say, if you want something, here's what you do for the fence. You put up a fence, and here's what you do for the overstayed visa. The problem here, okay, so that's that argument. It's gone, right? You can use the fence for this. You can use this for that. You don't need to do that anymore. We should move on. But we can't when it's personal, right? So this is now personal because there is no impersonal reason to reject a compromise. And Donald Trump is willing to make a deal because he likes making deals. And let's face it, he's been moving toward the middle. Anytime you're going to embrace DACA, seriously, Marie, if he's going to piss off a lot of people if he embraces DACA, but he is going to make it. He is willing to do anything for that wall, and it's idiotic for the Democrats. He will budge because he knows that you can get piece by piece. He is willing to give.
Will he budge?
Yes.
And for what?
But the point is, it's not about him now. It's about Chancey. You know, Chuck and Nancy. Right now, they're in this is like a divorce that stays together because of the kids. What you need right now is a mediator, right? You need a mediator to come in there. The mediator has to be an engineer who tells you exactly what is needed for the specific parts of the country, because God knows these politicians don't know what it is. So they sit there and they fall back into their same arguments. Well, the wall's not going to fix X. And he goes, well, we'll deal with that. Here's what the wall is good for. We do know that they have walls around their compounds. They have walls around their swimming pools. They have walls around their, wherever she's staying in Hawaii, has a wall. So
yes,
they work.
You're right about DACA and conservatives if DACA means amnesty. Right. If DACA equals amnesty, there is a very loud part.
If the Dems were pushing this agenda that Trump is actually offering, it would be hailed as a humanitarian effort by the media, because it would help the job market with lower middle, and it would just create more jobs. It would create a pathway to citizenship. The media would love this, but unfortunately Trump's doing it. Anytime Trump does something, the media has to hate it.
We will see if he does veto some sort of bill that he gets once Congress comes back in a few days. We will keep watching it. See how
will we keep watching? Really? I don't know if I will.
We might not, actually.
Bringing in Democratic strategist Zach Friend and the former NRCC Communications Director Matt Gorman to talk about these issues intertwined now. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I want to revisit what the president said again in that tweet that Rich had. He said, right now, there's a full-scale manhunt going on in California for an illegal immigrant accused of shooting and killing a police officer during a traffic stop. Time to get tough on border security, build the wall. Matt, there are those who say when the left does this after a mass shooting that you shouldn't play politics with something that happens so quickly and when it's really still playing out. What's your take?
Well, first of all, this crime is horrific, and whoever committed it needs to be caught and brought to justice, number one. But as you said, reframing it a little bit and pulling back in terms of the political aspect of this, as the president tweeted, I think this is going to really show what's at stake, however, during the shutdown. The shutdown is about border security. It's about legal versus illegal immigration. And from the start, the president's been very consistent about how he's for legal immigration, just like this police officer, and how he's against legal immigration. So I think what this shutdown's all about plays in very clearly and shows what's at stake when crimes like this happen.
I mean, it really is a case that illustrates the two sides of the issue in a horrific, tragic way. But it certainly sparks, again, the national conversation about this as we're sitting here watching a partial government shutdown. I want to show something else that came in. This is from Governor Brown out there in California, issuing a statement saying, on behalf of all Californians, Ann and I extend our condolences to Corporal Singh's wife, young son, loved ones, and colleagues. Our hearts are with the entire community of Newman and law enforcement officers across the state who risk their lives every day to protect and serve the people of California. Zach, critics are going to say this is the very same governor who signed a huge package full of things naming the state a sanctuary state and making it actually tougher for law enforcement to crack down on people who are in the state illegally.
Yeah, I mean, I know that one thing that always happens after all these events, as Matt noted, is that they really do become politicized, and I think that that's unfortunate. I mean, I worked at a law enforcement agency. 2 of my friends were murdered in the line of duty, and I guarantee you, immediately after that happened, there were discussions about Second Amendment questions, about mental health issues of the suspect, and none of us cared about it. The family didn't care about it. Those of us that worked at the law enforcement agency didn't care about it. This really is the time the discussion should be, and I would like to think that both parties would be doing this. They should be reaching out to the family, recognizing this is a long-term trajectory shift for not just that family, but for that law enforcement agency in a really, really challenging situation. I mean, my heart goes out to them, and I just hope that all elected leaders and political leaders take the politics out of this for some time and really do wrap their arms around this family and that community to really show their support.
Yeah, we are checking in moment by moment for any update as authorities think they do have at least some geographic boundaries on where they think that this suspect is and are confident they will close in on that individual. You saw the picture there. It's very clear for anybody who has information, easily recognizable if you happen to know that person. Meantime, this is all playing out against the backdrop of the shutdown as the president's here in town, the White House saying, hey, he decided to stay here and try to work on this. Democrats didn't. They left town. They went home. Democrats saying we put some things on the table. He wouldn't take them days ago. And so there was no reason for us to come back and negotiate because they're taking over in the House a week from today. So it's going to be a different ball game. You heard Congressman Meadows there, one of the more conservative Republicans on the Hill. He said today he feels like the needle actually moved away in the direction of a longer shutdown. Matt, probably not more than a week, but then once the House passes something, House Democrats, if they do indeed fund something, not including anything for the border wall for the president, does it get through the Senate? And what does the president do with it when it gets to his desk?
I think the only thing that matters right now is what Leader Schumer and President Trump can actually agree to. It needs Democratic votes to actually become law. And right now, as both Rich mentioned and Congressman Meadows, neither side has an incentive to end this shutdown right now. I think what you've seen in the last week or two really is the start of President Trump's re-election campaign. As Rich noted in the tweet, border security 2020 is going to be an issue, and the president is at his best when he has an enemy. Just like he had in Hillary Clinton in 2016, he now has in Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. They'll be the enemy until a Democratic frontrunner emerges out of the primaries. It's something that he is at best at when he has an antagonist. It'll wake up his base and show a very, very clear contrast of what's at stake in 2020.
Well, and Congressman McGovern, a Democrat, was on the Hill today trying to reopen the conversation. He said on the House floor he didn't have much company. That was not moving forward. But here's what he also said about the fact that he thought they had a deal. At least he says they did until the president got involved.
We ought to work at it until we get to an agreement where a majority say yes. And I think we had that until the president, went off his meds, and who the hell knows what happened.
Zach, you know, as Matt said, the president loves having someone to joust with, and words like that are most certainly to get a reaction from him, I would suppose.
Yeah, I don't think that that's actually really helpful to the conversation. I mean, look, the Senate voted 100 to 0 on a compromise package, so we know what the Democrats would support. And I actually really do believe that the only people who care about the blame game are people that are actually in Washington. Across the country, people are wondering whether this week's paycheck are going to pay next week's bill, and there's 800,000 federal workers right now and their families, which means that there's literally millions of people right now that don't have any money coming in. And I think that as this continues to play out, it isn't good for either party. I think it's disproportionately bad for the president. He took ownership of this early on. But I think somebody's waiting for an adult in the room. Somebody's waiting for some leadership to just step up, take the politics out of it, and just simply say, let's come to a compromise. I mean, there's a lot of people right now that don't have any money coming in. There's a lot of people not sure how they're going to make their mortgage payment in the coming weeks. And so we really got to make sure that somebody steps up and a compromise is reached.
And just to keep this factually clear, what has been explained to us is that current paychecks are going to go out. But if this doesn't wrap up within the next few days, then down the line, another week or two or more, we could be talking about issues. Eventually, those employees being paid back. But of course, a delay when you're living paycheck to paycheck is everything if you're trying to get this thing solved. Right. Okay, so they gavelled in for like minutes today and nothing happened. We'll see. They're going to try again January 2nd. Democrats take over the following day in the House, so we won't expect a whole lot of movement between now and then. It doesn't seem like from either side. In the meantime, Zach and Matt, thank you. Great to see you both.
Thank you.
My pleasure.